Surprise, surprise, today we are back on Reddit. We're going to be reading from a thread titled, People of Reddit, what was the worst date you've ever had? He arrived late, looked nothing like his pictures, like 10 years older and quite a few kilograms heavier. He spoke over and interrupted me the entire 20 minutes that I put up with the date. He'd asked me what some of my favorite things were, and when I told him, he would tell me why I was wrong about my choice. At the end of 20 minutes and my first drink, I told him I was done. He said, "But if you don't have another drink, how will I roofie you?" I told him to never contact me again. He asked if we could share an Uber home. That's bold as hell. We were sitting in a sort of bench table in a restaurant. There were 2 extra spots next to us. Almost immediately, a couple came and asked if they could share the table. I hesitated, but my date, a woman, quickly said yes. It didn't take long for the new couple to quickly figure out that we were on a first date, and they grew quiet. And I felt like they were listening in. I don't know if it was already a train wreck or this condition actually helped things along, but now I feel like I need to impress the girl and the other 2 people now on the table listening in. Anyways, I never saw that girl again, but I do remember the pizza was good. Those people sitting next to you were probably like, what have we done? Like, if it was a crowded restaurant, I'd probably also ask to share a table with somebody. And then if I realized that they were on a first date, I just ruined it. I just ruined your first date. They probably felt so bad. We met at Jamba Juice, and he said he wanted to show me something in his car and promised it wasn't his penis. We get in his car, and he says he can only show me the thing while driving. I make him promise again that it's not his dick, and he pulls out of the parking lot. While we start driving around downtown, he pulls a cassette tape out of his pocket that he says he got at Goodwill for only $1. What a steal. Puts it in his stereo, presses play, and then says he's been practicing. It was a learn how to yodel cassette tape. He proudly tells me that he's becoming a pretty good yodeler since he's been practicing every day. The guy on the cassette is doing this whole "Welcome to Yodeling 101" spiel before the yodeling started, and I'm debating getting out of the car at the stoplight, but then my date starts yodeling. So we're driving around the highly populated downtown with the windows wide open, and this man is yodeling his little heart out, only stopping every now and then to wiggle his eyebrows at me in what I think is an attempt at seduction. I'm laughing because what the fuck? This is the most theater kid display I've ever seen. Then a bee flies in the window and my date freaks the fuck out. Says he got into a car accident because of a bee the year before and starts flailing around while yodeling, trying to get the bee out of the window. In the process, he hits his thumb on the steering wheel, stops yodeling, and starts screaming about how much his thumb hurts. We're approaching a 3-way intersection with a green light and he insists his hand hurts too much to keep steering, then demands I steer his car until it feels better. He then starts yodeling, sadly, again. We're approaching the intersection and he still has his foot on the accelerator and I don't want to die with this man, so I lean over and I start steering while saying, "What the fuck?" over and over. He's still cradling his injured thumb, croaking out the saddest yodels with his eyes mostly shut. We make it through the intersection and I demand he start steering his car and take me back to Jamba Juice. He says, Wait, this yodel's almost done and I need to show you the end. But he grabs the steering wheel again, so I allow him to continue. The end of the yodel wasn't even that good. Eventually he wraps up his performance, having seemingly forgotten about his thumb, and takes me back to my car. I drive home in silence, only broken by me audibly asking myself what the fuck just happened. That is the most chaotic thing I've ever read. What kind of first date is this? Honestly, if it weren't for the bee and the thumb and the steering and all that, I could potentially look past the yodeling, but was he serious? If he was doing it as a joke, break the ice, make things less awkward, it's funny, I'm yodeling, blah blah blah, I found this cassette tape at Goodwill. Maybe, but I just don't know if that was the case. I met a guy from Tinder at Taco Mac when I was 21. Let's call him Larry since I forgot his real name. He texted me 20 minutes early asking what I would like to drink, but I didn't see it until I walked in. No big deal. Until I realized Larry was about 40 pounds heavier than his photos. I don't judge weight, but using year-old pictures is shady, especially since we had Snapchatted and I hadn't noticed a thing. When I sat down, Larry was already tipsy and annoyed because the bartender refused to let him order a drink for me before I arrived. He complained loudly about it, but I was more concerned he thought it was okay to order for me without asking. Kudos to the bartender for shutting that down. Larry, meanwhile, was a mess. He admitted he only had 1 drink but got drunk because he had just donated plasma for cash and hadn't eaten. His friend, who was sitting across the restaurant, had dropped him off. Things got worse. Larry said he was hungry, and while I grabbed a menu, he started chatting with the guy 2 stools over. Larry asked what he was eating, a quesadilla, if it was good, and if he could have some. To my shock, the guy gave him a huge piece, and Larry yelled for a plate and utensils before diving in. I was done. While Larry was busy talking to his new friend, I quietly asked or signaled the bartender for my check. She immediately understood. I paid, stood to leave, and Larry finally noticed. He asked why I was rushing off and if he could have a goodbye kiss. I told him to fuck off and I left. He couldn't follow me because he still had to pay his bill. I blocked him before I even got to my car. And then edit to add, at some point he was very upset and angry at me after I casually mentioned that I'd never seen Casablanca. Honestly, that's like a horrible date. But that's a good ass story. Like if I'm gonna go on a bad date, I wanna be able to write this all down. I wanna be able to go back and have memories of this date, this horrible date, and laugh because this is funny as fuck. It's so unfortunate, but at least you got a good story. 5 minutes in, he asked me to remove my heels because he felt like I was too tall. Then spent the remainder of the time telling me how most women are sluts and whores. Needless to say, he did not enjoy my company. Oh, a man would. Oh, I dare a man. We chatted online a little and set up a date. She said she lived in a funeral parlor and to pick her up in the back lot. She wanted me to stop in the bar for 5 minutes so she could talk to her friend, then wanted to go to my house. When we got to my place, she made a phone call, got in a fight with her mom, and had to go home. I asked her what was up, and in a very relaxed, speakeasy voice, she said, she thinks I'm on heroin. That's when I noticed her tiny pinhole pupils. She used me for a ride to score. That's crazy. She stopped at the bar to... Oh yeah, that's a bad one. My time to shine. Not only was this my worst date, it was my first date. I grew up pretty sheltered. I was a shy teenager and never really dated anybody. Once I was out on my own, back in the early days of internet dating, I made an OkCupid profile. Got a lot of obviously shady dudes for a long time, and it eroded my confidence to the point when one guy finally messaged me who actually spoke to me like a human being. I was over the moon and instantly wanted to meet up for a date. Dude didn't have any ideas on where to meet. I was new to the area, so somewhat at a loss myself. I loved ice skating though, and the local rec center had an ice rink. We could meet there. It was near his house, so it would be convenient for him. Okay, cool. My best friend drops me off. I had no car at the time, I had just left home, and I see that the rec center is closed. Whoops, my bad. I call the guy, who is late, on ye old flip phone, and he assures me it's no big deal, and he's almost there. I wait around for a while, and just when I think he's not going to show up strolls our hero, looking unkempt and distinctly pudgier than his profile picture. Now, as I'd already stated, this was my first date ever. I was a late bloomer, I was not super pretty, and had no illusions that I would be getting a great-looking guy, and my self-confidence was in the toilet for a myriad of reasons. Plus, I had not had enough harsh life experiences to teach me to be more guarded. Instead of bailing, I politely greet him and introduce myself. Our fine fellow is totally unbothered about the rec center and wants to walk back to his house with me. He lives in a nearby subdivision. I was a stupid, inexperienced young woman at this point and just agreed with no issue. Started walking back with him and texted my best friend that I was walking to his place, and she immediately starts to tell me that's a bad idea. I am paralyzed by the idea of being rude and judging him by his looks, so I decide to soldier on anyways. I'm the chick that gets murdered in the horror movie at this point. He's a little weird. I gather as much on the walk to his place. I enter the house, a lamb to the slaughter. His living room is as disheveled as he is, and as we sit on the couch and I pick a movie for us to watch, Iron Man, I ask about one couch section in particular that was upturned. Oh, I got drunk and lit that one on fire. Okay, as we watch the movie, me being totally uncomfortable and him ooching ever closer to me, he gets an arm around my shoulder. And at this point, I am internally screaming. He goes in for a kiss, and I turn my head at lightning speed, so he pecks my cheek instead, and I stand up, saying firmly, "No, I am not cool with that, we just met." He chills slightly, but is still sending out severe creepy vibes, and thankfully at this point, his mother and stepfather come home. This was extremely funny in hindsight. I had no idea he lived with his parents, and his mom looked shocked to see a girl, then over the moon delighted. She was so nice to me, practically ready to adopt me after knowing me for all of 2 minutes, and it was very obvious this unfortunate woman had long resigned herself to the fact that her weirdo son was never going to actually get a girl. At this point, I excused myself to use the restroom and desperately texted my best friend that I needed a rescue operation. Call me in a couple minutes, say you need to pick me up now since you're my ride home. When I emerged from my suspiciously long bathroom break, my date uttered some more unhinged nonsense that I don't even remember anymore after so many years, and his mother harshly reprimanded him. My best friend soon called and bailed me out. It was awkward because the mother had a deep pain and sadness in her eyes as I speedily took off, knowing that any chance of her son settling down with a girlfriend anytime soon was running out the door too. Bless her. I hope that her son got over whatever he was going through and that she has 10,000 grandchildren now. So that was it. I didn't die. 3 out of 10 experience. I absolutely love the way that you wrote that. That was a masterpiece. And again, if I'm gonna go on a bad date, give me a story that I can write out. Oh my God, this was amazing. Somebody literally replied and said this was beautifully written. I agree. A former coworker wanted to hook me up with one of her friends. I agreed, and we meet up at a nightclub. I got her a few drinks, and afterward, she spent the rest of the evening talking about how she misses her ex-boyfriend and what made him a great guy. She told me reasons that she should make up with him. At the end of the night, we cordially said goodbye, and she mentioned to me she was going to her ex-boyfriend's house to make up with him. That's insane. Someone replied to that and said, you should have charged her for a therapy session. Like, and why did you go out with me? You just really needed someone to talk to. Someone that doesn't really know the situation and can't tell you it's a terrible idea, like your friends. I had a date once where we went to a Greek restaurant and then back to her place. She apparently got food poisoning, oh no, and basically was in and out of the bathroom, and after a while in a stupor and going in and out of sleep while constantly farting and burping. I didn't know anything about her, and a roommate was not there, so I stayed with her all night while this was going on. After about 4 hours, her roommate finally got home, and I left. After this, she was infatuated with me and stalked me for about a year. Wow. I was gonna say, you staying was so kind of you. The constantly farting and burping, I would be mortified. But food poisoning happens. It's obviously not her fault. That's so unfortunate. It was very kind of you to stay. The fact that she, after that, was infatuated and stalked you for a year, I don't know what to say. Someone replied and said you saw her at her worst and stuck around. So yeah, that's why she stalked you. I was kind of thinking that, like, you were such a nice guy that she was like, I need him. I went on a first date with a woman I met through online dating. I knew she was unemployed. I don't judge. I don't mind paying for drinks, but then she started telling me she had no food at home and asked if I would lend her money. Then I shit you not, she said, I'm sure I can find some way to repay you. I had known this person for like 2 days and had spent around 30 minutes in person. I politely ended the date and let her know it wasn't going to work. Oh, you're so strong. Because I'd be like, here's money. Like, I don't know what to do. I would feel so bad. But also, you shouldn't feel bad. That's like insane. Girl was drop dead gorgeous. I'm talking absolute smoke show. I was over the moon she had agreed to a date. Not only was she absolutely stunning, she seemed nice and normal. She even told good jokes. I was seriously losing it with excitement. So we get to the restaurant, and as we're walking in, an older lady was also approaching the door. I stepped back and opened the door for the older woman, who thanked me and went inside. After that, my date's whole vibe changed. It was like she went from this fun, bubbly woman to someone who had just had a long day at work and got out of their car only to find that someone had slashed the tires. She seemed pissed all of a sudden. Then we sit down, order drinks, and I eventually get so confused I ask, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pry, but it seems like the vibe has somehow changed. Did I maybe do or say something that upset you? If so, I apologize, but I don't really know what it was. I just can't believe you held that door. What? For the lady, when we got here, you opened the door for her and you let her in before me. She was an elderly woman. I was just trying to be polite. I'm your date. I am legitimately so confused right now. I guess I just thought you were more alpha than that. What is this? I sat there for a few seconds just trying to actually process this conversation before realizing in an instant, oh, this woman is this gorgeous and this single because she's an awful person. That makes sense. I told her I would pay for the drinks, but I think that was enough for me. She got really upset and started saying things like, I obviously wasn't invested in this, and, oh, so that's it. You don't want to work this out? Work what out? You're angry at me for opening a door for an old lady. That's fucking clown shoes. I'm out. At that point, I dropped $20 on the table and dipped. She followed me and asked me to take her home, and I said she could call an Uber. I wasn't putting up with this. As I was driving away, I realized to my horror that I'd missed the opportunity to bookend with, how's that for alpha? Well, I thought you were more alpha than that. That makes me like uncomfortable. It like makes me cringe, and I hate saying that, but like that's an insane thing to say to somebody. And yeah, if you would have said, how's that for alpha? Chef's kiss. When I was younger, I went to pick up a girl for a date I had talked to over the phone but never actually met. I wasn't familiar with the part of town that she was from, but it didn't look like a good place. It basically looked like a rundown, poorer area. I was already nervous due to it being a first date and the neighborhood looking rough, but when I walked up to her house, all of a sudden, this huge gorilla-looking guy came flying through the door with a baseball bat. I take off running back to my car, not knowing if this Sasquatch man was still behind me or not. When I was finally in the car and about to take off, I saw my date at the front door yelling at him to stay inside. She walked to my car and I asked her if everything was okay. She said yes. That was just her dad being goofy. We went on the date, but all I can remember is thinking, how do I get this girl home without getting killed? I drove her back home and dropped her off. Needless to say, there wasn't a second date. Yeah, that's scary. The baseball bat. He's just being silly. Girl, that's insane. I met a woman organically. She had a great laugh. We vibed immediately, exchanged phone numbers. She called me 2 days later to ask me on a date. The date was at a restaurant and she brought some people. About 15 to 20. She was giving a presentation for a pyramid scheme. Why does that not surprise me? That's insane. Alex was wealthy and I was honored that he wanted to go on a date with me. We went to a nice restaurant and he was funny and charming. When we were finished eating, I swept my crumbs into my hand and pulled them into my salad bowl and stacked the empty dishes to help out the busboys. Alex looked at me like I had grown a fucking boil or something and asked, "Are you cleaning up after yourself?" That's their job. I paused, realized he didn't see many people as human, and never texted him back again. Shame on you, Alex. Good for you, dude. That's crazy. I will never understand people who have that mindset. I'm like, if I can make their life even a little bit easier, I'm gonna stack up my plates. I'm gonna wipe my crumbs off. Like, if you spill something, do you not naturally clean it up? Like, that's so weird. That's just weird to think like that. That's their job. And I'm gonna make their job a little bit easier. I used to regularly bump into a guy, exchange a few greetings. Anyhow, he asked me out to dinner. I wasn't really feeling that great on the night and tried to cancel, but he jollied me along. The restaurant was like one of those old school dining halls. Long tables, fixed benches, and the entire table went quiet as he berated me for being so quiet and asked why I wasn't being as dominant as I usually was, because he liked being dominated. Got up, went to the loo, and walked right past him and out the door. Hope that was dominant enough for him. It's giving very, is that alpha enough for you? That's just insane. Like, to be berating you at a table filled with other people, talking about wanting to be dominated. Are you not embarrassed? Met online, went to do karaoke. She started pounding drink after drink, telling me about her life and how her uncle would abuse her and her parents were okay with it because he helped them out with the bills in return. This was a first date, mind you. She's completely hammered when the time comes for her to sing, and despite the words being on screen in front of her, she forgets them and gets embarrassed and cries. She ends up falling asleep because she had too much to drink, so I went through her phone calling people until somebody was able to come pick her up. Flip phone days, no lock. I figured someone she knew should be the one to take her home, not some stranger she met on a first date. Got a call the next day where she absolutely cursed me out for embarrassing her by calling her friends, then said to never call her again. That wasn't that hard. You started strong with your first date being karaoke. I think that's so much fun. I think it's a really easy way to break the ice. You lost me at pounding drinks and talking about and trauma dumping. I'm all for trauma dumping, trust me, but girl, no, come on, you gotta hold that one in for a little bit. Crying when you can't remember the words to a song that you picked out, I would probably do that. She said, "I know a place we can make out." That place was her friend's house. Her friend was home. Her friend's mom was home. I met her friend's mom. Her friend's boyfriend came out to greet me holding a shotgun. She told me that she was into knife play. This was our first date. Wow, the shotgun. The shotgun's insane. But also being like, I know a place we can go. And everyone being home. Everyone's there. You met the whole family, basically, of her friend. That's all we're gonna read for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any bad date stories that you want to share with me in the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. I just kind of wanted to do something not so scary today, something a little bit more lighthearted, and these were insane, and so I'm glad we did this. I don't miss these days. The days of online dating. I hope to God I never go back, but I'm gonna go. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.